Alright, what's up guys? Welcome to Promotech. Thanks for tuning in. The Galaxy S27 Ultra leaks don't look revolutionary at first glance, and that's exactly why they matter. Samsung appears to be moving away from loud marketing tricks and back towards something the smartphone industry quietly abandoned years ago, cameras that adapt intelligently instead of just overpowering scenes with processing. And honestly, this might end up being the most important Galaxy camera shift since the Ultra series even started. So Samsung is getting ready for the Galaxy. The deeper you go into these leaks, the stranger Samsung's strategy starts to look. For the last few years, every flagship launch has felt almost identical. Bigger sensor, more megapixels, more AI, more zoom. But somewhere during that race, smartphone cameras lost something. Photos started looking overly sharpened, skies got blown out, skin tones looked artificial, and night shots sometimes felt more like digital paintings than actual photography. And now Samsung might be quietly admitting that. The biggest leak surrounding the Galaxy S27 Ultra isn't actually crazy the leak 200 megapixel HP6 sensor, but because Samsung is quietly changing what the FE and this is one of those features means. Most people ignored decision when Samsung first introduced it, because the industry moved too fast to appreciate it properly. If you remember the Samsung Galaxy S9 and Samsung Galaxy S10, Samsung already experimented with cameras that could physically adjust how much light entered the lens. At the time, it felt futuristic. Then suddenly the entire smartphone industry became obsessed with giant sensors and computational photography. So the idea disappeared almost overnight. But here's what's interesting now. Back then, smartphone cameras were still trying to catch up to real cameras. Today, they've already caught up in raw detail or recycle flagship. The problem now is consistency. Cheaper. But now, modern phones can produce incredible shots 1 second. Samsung knows there's a huge group of users that software processing features without spending ultra-level money. Variable aperture, especially now that flagship prices are getting harder to justify daylight. Every single camera can narrow the aperture and preserve more natural sharpness across the frame. The price is expected to go slightly higher this time, but Samsung is clearly open wider to capture more real premium, so people accept that increase without even thinking twice. That means cleaner shadows instead of making artificial smooth feel cheap. Portrait blur, they're trying to make it that actually looks optical. That's a very different approach. Software, because when you compare older but in real life, this could be one of those upgrades you notice every single day without realizing why your photos suddenly feel more expensive. And honestly, Samsung bringing this back now feels intentional. The company probably knows the megapixel race is reaching its limit. Everybody already has huge sensors. Everybody already has AI enhancement. The next phase is making smartphone cameras behave less like smartphones and more like actual professional tools. But Samsung's rumored camera changes get even more aggressive once you look at what might disappear. Reports suggest the dedicated 3x telephoto lens could be gone entirely. And at first, that sounds terrible. Removing cameras usually sounds like cost-cutting. But this might actually reveal where Samsung's priorities are shifting. It starts hurting the rest of the modern 200-megapixel now sensors. Software and privacy are another has improved dramatic story. Phones Samsung can digitally punch in focusing more while still retaining impressive personal data protection. So Samsung and stronger knock security integration that one separate zoom and this actually matters simply isn't worth the internal space because smartphones are becoming extra heavily AI used for something people. Every company wants more data, built-in magnetic personalization. Not more special tracking cases in the background. Not awkward. Users are starting to notice that. Actual native Samsung push CS directly inside the Galaxy and on itself. This phone if Samsung finally does this, it changes the ecosystem completely. Wireless battery packs, car mounts, creator grips, cooling accessories, desktop docks. Suddenly Galaxy accessories become cleaner, faster, and way more integrated. Honestly, this might end up being one of the biggest quality of life upgrades Samsung has made in years, and barely anybody's talking about it yet. And this is exactly why I've been paying more attention to brands like Wolver lately. A lot of these new mobile ecosystems are evolving faster than most people realize, especially around creator gear and magnetic accessories. And having one place tracking the useful stuff honestly makes life easier instead of digging through random stores every week. Now, another hidden detail buried in these leaks is something called LAFIC imaging technology attached to Samsung's new sensor. The name sounds ridiculous because
this
but the idea behind is all about paying attention to the details.
One of the hardest things for
most
smartphone
cameras is handling scenes.
But coming
with
back to the
S27 FE,
bright skies,
I think the
neon
biggest
lights,
sign of Samsung's
windows
confidence
behind
is
subjects,
actually the timing
city
itself.
streets at night.
Launching this
Phones
phone later in the
still
year
struggle
means
balancing
Samsung
all of that
gets to
naturally.
respond to everything
Apparently,
competitors
this
did
new
beforehand.
system allows
new
the sensors
pixels
to retain
new iPhones,
more lighting
new Chinese
information
flagships
before the image gets processed.
Samsung can quietly
and that's
adjust
huge
marketing
because it suggests
pricing
Samsung
and positioning
may
right
finally be
before holiday buying
prioritizing
season.
image data.
That's a powerful
over
spot to
artificial
be in.
enhancement.
And
In
honestly,
other words,
if
instead
Samsung
of
keeps
creating
improving
fake-looking
FE devices
HDR
at
effects
this pace,
afterward,
I genuinely think a lot of
preserve
users
more
will stop
real
seeing
detail
them
from the beginning. Cleaner highlights, more realistic shadows, better color depth,
less of that smartphone look people have gotten tired of. Even the front camera rumors feel surprisingly forward-thinking this year. Samsung is reportedly exploring advanced 3D face
they'll just become the
scanning
smarter
similar
by
to
for
Apple's
most
approach,
people, which also
honestly
creates
feels
a
overdue
very
at this point.
uncomfortable
But the really
question
weird rumor
for Samsung
is the square-shaped selfie sensor.
If the FE lineup
sounds
keeps
pointless
getting
at
closer
first
to the
until you
premium Galaxy
realize what it
experience
actually
every
solves.
year.
Modern
At what point
creators
do regular
constantly
Galaxy
switch
S models
between
start
vertical
losing their
and
purpose?
horizontal video.
Take care.
A square
and stay
sensor
safe.
captures
I'll
more
see you in the
usable
next one
frame
soon.
area in
Cheers.
both directions.
Bye-bye.
Meaning less
Happy New
cropping
Year.
and more
The timing,
flexibility,
the pricing,
while filming. The software
tiny
focus.
hardware decision.
They tell a much
Huge
bigger
real-world
story
impact.
about where Galaxy
And if you're
phones
still
are
watching
heading
right
over the
now,
next few years.
you're exactly why
Let's
this
dive
channel
right into the
exists.
video.
More than
So
70%
70%
launch
of
timeline.
viewers watching
Right
these
now,
videos
leaks
still
are
aren't
pointing toward a
subscribed,
late
and the
2026
best conversations
release.
always
Most likely
come from
September
people
or
who care about the
October,
details,
which honestly
underneath
makes
the
perfect
marketing.
sense.
So if you enjoy
Samsung has
deeper
basically turned the
breakdowns
entire
instead
year
of
into a
recycled
carefully
spreadsheet
planned
videos,
rollout.
January
Definitely
was
join
the
the community.
flagship Galaxy
Because
S
honestly,
launch.
the
The
Galaxy
Galaxy
S27
S27 Ultra doesn't feel like Samsung trying to win headlines anymore. It feels
The
like
experience for
Samsung
regular
preparing for the next
Quick side
era
note,
before
over 70%
everybody
of you
else
guys
notices where
watching
the
right
industry
now
is heading.
still aren't subscribed.
Smaller decisions. So if you enjoy
Smarter
these
hardware,
deeper
less
conversations where we
gimmicks,
actually break
more
down
intentional
what companies
design.
are doing behind
And if
the
this
scenes
strategy
instead
actually
of just
works,
reading
there's a
specs
good
off a
chance
website,
future Galaxy
definitely
phones
subscribe
start
feeling very different from the devices we've been getting these past few years. Take care and stay safe.